Hello, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Kim, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Austin, let the record reflect that Mr. Austin is absent. Ms. Quetch? Here. Mr. Webb?
Here.
Mr. Anderson?
Here.
And Mayor Pillion.
Here. And we have on the agenda that Mr. Austin will be doing the Pledge of Allegiance. But since he is unable to join us tonight, Donna Quetch is going to take it.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now I would like to welcome Reverend Paul C. from Abingdon United Methodist Church to lead us in prayer.
Thank you. I don't have a doctorate, but if the town council is bestowing them tonight, I'll gladly accept. I'm blessed to serve as the pastor of Abingdon and Charles Wesley United Methodist Churches on Main Street to be with you tonight. Let us pray. Almighty God, your steadfast love and faithfulness are from everlasting to everlasting. You create, you redeem, and you sustain. We thank you for the blessing of this day and the beauty of this place we call home. For the mountains, rolling hills, cool streams of living water, and everything that grows and lives therein. Please bless, O God, our town council, all those who serve and work to make day-to-day life possible. We are so thankful for the people in our town who respond when there is an emergency. We thank you for those who pay bills, plan events, take care of paperwork, and keep the town clean by hauling away trash, and all those who labor behind the scenes. We ask that you would be with those who are sick, or sad, or hurting in any way. Our hearts are especially with our neighbors on the other side of the world in Turkey and Syria following the awful earthquake. We pray that you would bless the hungry, the homeless, and the poor. May those living with addiction find recovery and freedom. And may all your children live free of the fear of violence. Help us to listen to one another and to work together through our differences for the good of all. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Now we will move on to the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to amend? First of all, we'd like to move the agenda. We would like to move item P1, the swearing in of the Abingdon Police Department Sergeant, after public comments, item F. So do we have a motion to do that? Motion by Mr. Anderson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Webb. Do we have any discussion? There is no discussion. Kim, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Quetch? Aye. Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Webb?
Aye.
And Mayor Pillion.
Aye. We do not have anyone signed up for public comments. Is there anyone who has a public comment? So we will move on to the swearing in. And I would also like to recognize and welcome back Lieutenant Eads, who is with us tonight, who is back to work after an absence.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Come before you tonight to talk to you about a sergeant promotion. Sergeant promotion with Sergeant or Officer Chris Barker. We recently completed a sergeant process that was a very competitive process. I was very proud of all my officers that participated in the process, and they made it a tough one. It involved written essays, it involved a written test, it involved a large panel interview, and their experience and training all went into play, and at the end we selected Chris Barker as our next sergeant. So those that don't know Chris Barker, he's standing back here. He's a native of Washington County, went to John Battle High School, graduated there in 2004. Started a career as being a mechanic, and he was a very talented mechanic. In 2016, he joined the town of Abingdon as a mechanic, and he fixed everything we could throw at him, and he can break some stuff. And he did it all without one single YouTube video.
Wow.
But he made a mistake. One day he told me, he said, I might want to get into law enforcement. So of course, I recruited him quickly, and after a short few months hiring process, the Public Works lost a great mechanic. Sorry, Mr. Shred. And the Abingdon Police Department gained an exceptional police officer. So he was hired in December 2017. He completed the basic academy in August of 2018. From there, he went on to become a field training officer. He's trained several of our officers as they got out of the academy. He then went on to become a certified general instructor through DCJS and a defensive tactic instructor. So he's completed numerous trainings throughout his time with us, and we're very thankful to have him. And very excited to be able to promote him to a sergeant. So Chris, if you'll come up, and Ms. Kingsley, if you don't mind, you swear him in into his new role.
We won't hold a John battle Trojan against you.
That's what I was gonna say, the exact same thing, Kim. Exactly what I was gonna say.
You're outnumbered. You'll raise your right hand, please. Do you, Christopher Barker, solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Virginia, and the laws and ordinances of the town of Abingdon, that you will abide by the code of ethics for law enforcement officers and the rules and regulations of the town of Abingdon Police Department, that you will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon you as a sergeant for the town of Abingdon according to the best of your abilities, so help you God.
I would.
We will get you to sign this affidavit. And welcome.
Thank you.
It's official.
Congratulations.
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 With that, I'd like to invite his wife up. She's going to take his patrol officer badge off and pin on his new sergeant badge, as well as the collar insignias. No pressure. Congratulations.
Thank you, Chief.
Congratulations. Thank you. Okay. We need to approve our minutes from the January 3rd regular meeting and the January 26th mid-month meeting. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of both of those meetings together.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Webb, second by Mr. Anderson. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, Kim, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Quetch? Aye. Mr. Webb?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
And Mayor Pillion.
Aye. We have no proclamations. We do have a public hearing. We have 2 speakers signed up for the public hearing. Please remember that you have 5 minutes to speak, and you will be given a warning at the 1-minute mark. The public hearing is for a proposed special use permit to construct a monument sign at the intersection of Jonesboro Road and Old Berry Drive Applicant Snyder Signs Incorporated on behalf of Berry Home Centers Incorporated. The monument sign will be signage for properties and businesses within the Oakstone development with proposed placement on tax parcel 104C212-4, owner Archland Property 1 LLC at 1105 Old Berry Drive. Mayana, would you like to provide us with some information? Okay.
All right, good evening. Mayana Rice. As you indicated, this is, the applicants are the Berry Home Center and Snyder Signs. The section of the code that they're looking to utilize is section 15-9, special use permit. So that is what you all are reviewing tonight. They're looking to do a monument tenant sign at the northeast corner of the intersection of Old Berry Drive and Jonesboro Road. The special use permit is for what we call a comprehensive sign plan. So it is just one sign, but it is falling within that section of the code that would allow them to apply for this. So a little bit about the background. In May 1994, that's 28 years ago, a plat was approved for the subdivision. In that plat, as you can see on page 4 of your staff report, the parcels created were the Oakstone properties. It was 7 individual parcels. After approval, a variety of businesses have been located inside that subdivision, and no sign has been ever placed in the final plat location where a permanent sign easement was identified. So you can get a closer view of where that existed on the plat on page 5. You can see it says permanent sign easement, and that was on lot 4. So the original request came in about 3 years ago when Berry Home Center asked if they could do a sign just for the Berry Home Center. As you all know, off-premise signage is something that we talk about quite a bit, and we wouldn't allow one sign to be placed at the entrance of a subdivision for one business. So that's just not something we allow, just like we wouldn't allow a sign for a business to be placed on a location that it doesn't exist. So they were told no, and at that time there wasn't additional information that was provided. So in this last year, again, we were approached by them to put up a singular sign, and working with your council and reviewing the plats, etc., we came to the conclusion that the only type of sign that could even work here would be if they came through and asked for a special use permit. And that would be for all the businesses. So a sign for all the businesses that are out there, not just for one business. So we've reviewed the documentation, and you see in your packet that there still is a lack of ownership proof for that easement. So it says it on the plat, but nothing in the deed work and all of the paperwork that we could review really said that Berry's got to use it. It just is a permanent sign easement, again, we assume for the subdivision. So what happened? So we took it to the Planning Commission, and the image of the sign is on page 8. And that sign shows Berry Home Centers in the primary location, and then you can see the other tenants that are inside that subdivision. You've got United Way, Comfort Inn, Moondog Pizza, and then there's some space for the parcels that still haven't developed. So we said, okay, that sign does comply with a comprehensive sign plan. You're not looking at just one business, you're looking at all of them. So that went to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission reviewed it, and they said, again, because there's no evidence that there's a true ownership of the Berry Home Centers for that permanent sign easement, they recommended approval with the following specific condition. That they would only, that this could only go through and get an actual sign permit if there was an agreement to utilize that permanent easement between the applicant and, in this case, it's McDonald's. And so if they were able to arrange to have an agreement between the two parties, then we would go ahead and issue the sign permit if you all chose to adopt it and make a motion to approve tonight. So that is where we're bringing it to you this evening. Meanwhile, I've had conversations with the McDonald's Corporation as well as the franchisee, and neither one of them were able to attend tonight, but I do have this memo that was sent to me on Friday. And most specifically, Jason Carter says, I received a message that there'll be more discussion at a meeting on February 6th. There is a possibility I will be unable to attend. My wife is having surgery the day before. My husband is just out of the hospital and requires help at home in the evenings. I wanted to email you with my stance regarding the sign. So far as I understand it, Barry's has failed to provide any kind of surveys, plans, or any other due diligence regarding this proposed sign. They've apparently failed to consider the base of our interstate sign. Serious potential safety issues concerning the amount of traffic at the entrances and exits, the fact that we constantly see people pulling through the parking lot the wrong way. Since I've been involved with this location since it was built, I can't count the number of times I've seen near head-on collisions and other traffic issues on the road in front of this location. With these issues and others not stated, I cannot agree to a sign on our property at this time. So we go back to, you know, what is the role of the town council? What is the role of the planning commission? The role really comes down to determining whether or not the sign fits within the zoning ordinance, and if so doing, either approving or denying, or you can approve with conditions. And in this case, the planning commission was very specific about, and I'll read for the record just the 3 conditions. 1, upon acquiring an agreement to utilize the permanent easement, the applicant shall submit the agreement to the Town of Abingdon Community Development to add to the special use permit file. 2, the applicants must maintain tenant space on the proposed entrance sign for each of the tenants within the Oakstone subdivision. And 3, the applicants must apply for and obtain a sign permit through the Town of Abingdon's Community Development Department. So they felt that they had enough information to approve the sign. But again, you know, since that planning commission time, we have had indication from McDonald's that they are not in approval of that sign. So with that, the applicants are here to speak for public comment. I've entered the information into the record from the property owner, and if you have any questions, I can try to answer them.
Barry's is okay with these conditions.
They were okay at the planning commission meeting. When they come up tonight, it would be good to put it on the record if they continue to approve those. I also sent them a copy of the information from the franchisee, Jason Carter.
Any further questions? Okay, I'd like to open the public hearing. The first individual who is signed up to speak is Mr. Tom Bishop.
Well, this is a lot of information. I'm just gonna give you a little background on it. You know, we came to Abbey in 1977. Started out in the old McClure Motor Company building, where later I sold that property when we built the new building to the town of Abingdon for the police station. That's another interesting story. I won't go into that. But anyway, the way this thing came out, of course, you know, Oakstone Properties is owned by myself. I own Berry Home Center, which they might be involved in some trust or whatever in it, but it's, you know, it is all one owner. And I thought we'd pretty much established that we'd already passed that hurdle. But anyway, as this was developing, I dare say that we might have to go back to the building inspectors with the town, because the original sign was on McDonald's property. The original sign was on their property. I had a working relationship with actually the foreman who built the McDonald's in Chilhowie, because I sold that property. And the grading contractor, I had a relationship with both of them, and they called me down there. And I literally gave them permission. It was going to cut out 3 to 4 parking areas, and they wanted to know if they could build in that easement. And I gave them a verbal permission to do that, as long as we could still get a sign in there. heaven forbid that all this, you know, if I could push it, I could put it on McDonald's to prove that they had permission to be in that easement. Because the original plans showed their sign in their property, and with the curve and the lay of the land, I agreed that they could share the easement, that they could have it on there. So that's the grid of this. Then I guess Wayne Austin was my attorney our attorney at the time. We can't use him anymore. I guess I'm our own attorney. So as far as legality, you know, we would have, I guess, if y'all turn us down, we'd have to go, I'm gonna have to go after McDonald's for being on money. I'm gonna have to sue them to move their sign, pay me for using the sign, unless they can prove, I don't recall ever signing anything. So it's not like we hadn't tried to be a good neighbor here in Avenue. And then when you talk about this development that we put in, we even had to put at the time, we spent every dime, we put the crossovers, we put in turn lanes, we did everything. And by the way, you know, we went by subdivision ordinance, and y'all accepted that. And while we're here, it's been over 20 years, could you put us on the payment schedule? It's time for it to be paid.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Chris is here, he's been involved in it too. If you'd like to say anything else, of course, we'd have 10 minutes, we put it together, but, we're getting ready to celebrate our 50th anniversary in the Home Center. We started in '73. And, I've been in it from the start all the way through, and, we're just trying to make a big celebration. We're upgrading our store right now, doing an upgrade on it, a major upgrade, and it's just vital really to the visibility, because we feel the lots are pretty much full, and just to be able to know where our store is. And I don't think it's too big an ask, and that's why I would say that I didn't know, personally, I didn't know that the Planning Commission had required that, but as my own attorney, my individual attorney, with what we've got in place, that I couldn't see why we would be asking McDonald's for permission. What we created, that it was created from the start, permanent signage. Any questions?
You're okay with the conditions the planning commission set?
If, about them, we couldn't be if it has to do with the McDonald's agreement, because it looks like that they're saying they're not agreeing with the sign. So we could,
Okay.
we couldn't accept that.
Yes, there was 3.
Can I ask a question? Tom, is the plat that shows the permanent sign easement, there's no meets and bounds, and so the survey itself doesn't say exactly where it is. Do you have?
It's been surveyed, it's marked on the ground.
Okay, so do you disagree with McDonald's that McDonald's sign is in the permanent sign easement, or do they disagree with where you're proposed to put it?
I don't think they know that their sign is in the permanent sign easement, that it is clearly in it. And we would only be affecting one small corner of a parking space. And I saved them 4 or 5 at the time by letting them bring it into the easement.
And we've been using McDonald's very loosely here. There's no McDonald's named entity involved, but there's Archland who owns the property,
That's
and then
right.
there's the franchisee.
The franchisee, which we worked with Jess, I think it's Jess Carter at the time, which he has the one at Chilhouse as well.
Okay. So if I interpret it right, Ms. Quetch is on Planning Commission, so you may be able to give a little bit more gloss as to what it was that you were doing. I think if you could come forward with saying something, yes, we own that permanent sign easement, yes, the sign is only gonna be in the easement, and yes, that doesn't conflict with any right of McDonald's or Archland or the franchisee, then I think that's what planning commission was asking for. And I think the basis for that just is just sort of a precedent, and not picking on you, but just if anybody comes in and wants to say, I wanna put a sign somewhere, that somebody says that they've got the right to do it. And like we've said before, we're not in the business of doing title searches for you or telling you what you own or don't own. But if you could come forward with that, saying where you wanna put the sign is owned by Barry's Home Center, Inc., or Oakstone Properties as delegated to Barry's Home Centers under the way the sign is gone, then I think that's what all the planning commission's asking for.
Okay.
But I don't think that we have that exactly, and
You
it
got
sounds
my
like.
word.
Well,
You can go to the bank with what I tell you.
well,
I mean,
I believe you, but.
we try to be a good neighbor down here. Now, I will admit, when we was on Main Street, we got a couple of letters about the weeds or something, but we took care of it. And we tried to be a good neighbor here. I mean, our motto is we try to make it easier to build homes in Smith and Washington County and the region. And we've tried to live with that.
And what I'm hearing Cam say is basically, it almost sounds like McDonald's would have to prove they can prevent you from putting the sign there if we adopt it in this manner. Is that kind of what y'all are hearing, council?
Is that correct?
It's almost,
Yeah.
I mean, I know that kind of turns
I
the
don't know
table,
what- yeah,
but
I don't know what else we can prove. I mean, what else can you ask me to prove when it's all permanent sign easement? And do you acknowledge that I'm the person that signed all this original?
I do.
Still
And again,
living.
we're not in the business of doing your chain of title or
Well, I
finding
know
where your
that.
title is.
But
I think the missing link is that where the sign is gonna go is in the permanent sign easement that's owned by one of your entities.
Right.
And that doesn't conflict with some ownership of one of the McDonald's entities.
Okay, but of course, I mean, I've already, before we went with this, I paid the surveyor to come out. And it's been staked and surveyed, marked. And it's clearly in it, their sign is clearly in that. So.
But aren't they saying that where your sign is gonna go is on property that they own? I mean, that's what this
Well, they're wrong.
email says.
yeah. See, I think they're misinterpreting what their ownership is what I'm gathering.
Exactly.
So
then, but y'all throwing it back to me to correct that, and I don't wanna look like the bad guy.
So the way I see this is that if we approve the sign, which the planning commission has said the sign meets the ordinance code and all of those things. So if we approve the sign, then it's between you and them to decide where the sign goes and if that's okay. We can't tell you legally, you can put a sign here. We can tell you the town approves your sign.
Well, that's fair enough.
Right, Cam? Am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
But.
But I do think that Mr. Bishop is right. I think planning commission did put that back on you to show that you do have the right to be there before it would approve it. Now, council doesn't have to go along with those necessarily, but that's sort of what came from
Well,
planning commission.
I don't think planning commission knew all this back and forth with McDonald. I mean, this is the first time so I don't think planning commission knew that either.
right.
Yeah.
So it puts us in a difficult position because as much as we would like to help you, our hands are tied to an extent because we don't own the property. So we can't tell people what to do with property that they own other than approving the sign. So it puts us in a legal conundrum.
Well,
So, Cam, I just wanna make clear, like, what is your recommendation for the council if we approve of this sign? Like, how should we approach this conundrum, as we've called it?
Right. Well, I'm not sure it's up to me, but, I don't think that we wanna get in a situation where council has taken an affirmative action to sort of step in the middle of a dispute, whether it's
Right.
valid or not valid. But, I'm not sure at which point we have to make the decision or somebody comes to the decision. I guess to take this out to its extent, we get an email from Mr. Bishop that says, yes, I do own it. Then,
Right.
I mean, it was still in the same
I've made
thing.
contracts on napkins. dimensions. Glad to fix that right now.
Of where, I
Very
mean,
well.
that is another indicia of, that he can move forward with it, and again, we're not deciding where the sign goes specifically, or
Yeah.
the primary aspect to approve is whether the design is correct, or not. So, I mean, I think that's what planning commission had in mind was, hey, come forward and show us, and tell us that you own that property and it's okay for you to put it there. And if that's the only step, then I think that was what the condition was.
Yeah, if you approved it, then it would be between the two parties. If they have a problem, I'll meet with them.
Yeah.
We'll meet with them on site.
And I think
Yeah,
that's what the
Yeah,
intent was.
we'll meet with them on site, but, you know, this been going on long enough.
Well, and I think that's what the planning commission, that's what that first condition, upon acquiring an agreement to utilize the permanent easement, the applicant shall submit the agreement to the town of Abingdon Community Development to add to the special use permit file. So I think the way I'm interpreting what the planning commission said is, you know, they're fine with you building the sign as long as you have an appropriate agreement about the permanent easement, which we can't take part in because
You
neither,
can't
we
take
don't
part
own
in
either
that.
part of
That's
those,
right.
we don't own either of those properties. So if we make a motion to approve the signage, then that falls upon you to do that, not
Okay,
because
well,
we
I
don't wanna
missed
help you, but because we cannot.
Okay, I was taking what they'd said, that I'd have to have agreement with McDonald's before you could approve this.
No, I think that the approval is, you know, if we approve it, then you have to,
That
you
they
have
got
to
a
do
part.
that,
That's,
it-
yeah,
before the sign
we-
can
we
be
have
built.
to, yeah.
right?
We're gonna be a good neighbor regardless. Unless they wanna fight us.
So the way I see this is we have three motions we could make. We could move to approve under conditions that the planning commission set forth. We could move to deny, or we could move to continue and wait until all the other pieces fall into place. Or I guess the fourth one would be that we could move to approve without the conditions. I feel like the first option, moving for approval, for what the planning commission recommended, I like to always say that we like to stand behind our commissions and boards. You know, we appoint people who are very knowledgeable and do a very good job, and I feel like if this is what they want to do, then we should respect that as a council to a degree. So that is my feeling. I don't know how the rest of council feels, because that means that we are saying that the sign, that we approve the sign as long as you fulfill the three conditions that were outlined by the planning
Be very
commission.
fair.
So we're still in public hearing technically, so.
Okay, sorry.
You're on.
I'm getting ahead of myself, I'm sorry. So is there anyone else who would, any more questions, or anyone else who would like to speak in the public hearing?
You have another sign.
I have another signed, Mr. Brewer is also signed up to speak. Do you have anything to add?
I'm just gonna give you a copy of the deed.
Okay.
I think it was in.
Put it on the back of it.
Yeah, I know that he said at one point that, asked if you had anything to add or not, so I didn't know if you
Yeah, that's
did.
okay.
No, and it's great if you do. You have 5 minutes
I've reached
also.
out to Todd. He's available by phone sometime, or Todd Sword from McDonald's Corporate. He hasn't returned any of my phone calls or texts this last week. So I'd hope to have agreement before now, but,
It's on,
They're
did
just
you,
not-
did you get the second page of that?
yeah.
The second page, yes.
Thank you.
I mean, in McDonald's contract, it does state that you have to specify any easement, that they don't go by unless you
Thank you.
call it out. And you can see right in the deed, the permanent sign easement that located on the southwest corner of the property. It's all right in the deed.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks. No, we're sharing. Thanks.
Recording. I think that's in the original.
That is-
So the permanent sign is not located in the southwest
You
corner.
can see where the sign is there. And part of their reservation was that
Yeah.
people are turning in there and then they have more traffic than they should, sign with the business names at the intersection. I think it's a lot more.
It's bigger, yeah.
Of course, all the turn lanes and everything is put in the, Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, great information, I appreciate it. So we will close the public hearing. And now we will move on to the resolution, special use permit to construct a monument sign at the intersection of Jones Square Road and Old Berry Drive. Applicant Snyder Signs on behalf of Berry Home Centers. The monument sign will be signage for properties and businesses within the Oakstone development with proposed placement on tax parcel 104C212-4, owner Archland Property LLC 1105 Old Berry Drive. So, at this point, before we make a motion, is it appropriate to ask questions from Mayana? Do you have any further information for us after the discussion?
I don't, so if you, I mean, I think you interpreted exactly what the planning commission was trying to get at. The one piece of information that, you know, we will have to work through in the community development department is, the actual approval of the sign permit. So if you all approve it tonight, with or without conditions, they still have to come and get a sign permit. So we would expect their agreement, either verbally or an email or some sort of a more formal agreement, to be provided to us prior to us issuing that sign permit. So there is one more step, essentially, where we have the ability to ask for that agreement.
Okay. Do any of you have any more questions or discussion? No? Well, I would like to entertain a motion on this resolution.
I would move to adopt the resolution, and I think we all understood that it would be with the same guidelines that the planning commission had set forth in their unanimous approval. But I would make that motion.
Motion is made by Mr. Webb. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Quetch. Do we have any discussion? If there is no discussion, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
Mr. Webb?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
And Mayor Pillion.
Aye.
You guys.
Thank you all for all of the information. We have no ordinances to discuss tonight. We do have a consideration of bids. We are going to revisit the discussion that we had at our mid-month meeting about on-call general maintenance and repair service for various facilities owned and operated by the town. And Michael Surratt, the Director of Public Works, is going to explain this to us.
Mayor, council members, as you know, the work session, we put forward an RFP out for bids for general services, on-call, and maintenance. The facilities maintenance department, and just some clarification, I think in your packet, we gave you the RFP, the contract, and all the documentation in there. This RFP for on-call services is for budgeted projects. I know the number that was put out was kind of big, but it is part of the Virginia procurement law, and that is the number that's stipulated in there. But this is to do things more efficiently and quickly to get these maintenance and repair projects done on all the town facilities. If you have any other questions about what we are going to be doing with it, other than these budgeted projects, I'll be glad to answer.
I just have one question. I was thinking is it typically 5 years or is it 1-year contracts? I
mean, we can
guess.
stipulate it,
Okay.
in the RFP, it says the initial year and then those additional years. We can stipulate it for however we want to do per the procurement law.
Oh,
But it
okay.
can be up to, the 4 renewals, which is most of the way we do most of our on-calls. Even our professional services, they're renewable for up to 4 years.
Okay.
So you would renew it at the end of the first year?
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
We don't have to, but we can.
Right, so if we.
Well, the 1 year would probably be 100,000 then, wouldn't it? Since the 5
Yeah.
years was 500,000.
I can't say it would actually be 100,000, it would be
Okay.
for whatever budgeted projects we have in
Okay.
our CIPs and projects that come down the pipeline, if there's something that happens that we need them for. Like, there's a possibility where we might not only spend
Yeah.
$20,000 a year for on-call services. It really does kind of fall in that same realm of what we do with our professional services on-call and engineering. Is some projects we use it, and sometimes we don't. I mean, it really is just an on-call, some way that we can get, somebody in here and do
Just
something.
have somebody on
pretty
standby,
quickly. Yes, ma'am.
takes good care.
So we aren't taking $500,000 from somewhere and
No.
putting it there. This is just money that we already have budgeted for a project. And
Yes.
if they find asbestos, for example, and we need somebody to abate the asbestos,
Yes.
then we can use this group up to $500,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Well, and to add to that too, under the small purchase policy, they could do this without an RFP up to $200,000 of construction any day of the week. So doing it as an RFP is more transparent and more vetted and that sort of thing than they could do under small purchase policy anyway. But again, they can't, I'm sure Mike would like to spend money that he's.
Yeah, I mean, I would
that's
love to
in
be able to
somebody
spend money
else's
to fix
budget.
everything in town, but,
But-
I mean, we just use
but
it,
that
we
would
use it
be
for
what it would be limited
budgeted
to.
projects.
Right.
Well, I noticed this company is on call 24 hours a day.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So this would just, the other way that I interpreted this is that if there was a project, you wouldn't have to go through the procurement process every single time.
Yes, ma'am.
That you would, every time we had asbestos, or every time we had lead, or every time you need them for a special service, you would already have that agreement in place and it would save you time.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And significant time, I mean,
Yes.
and the expense that for an RFP, we typically put it out at least 3 weeks, 60 days
Yeah,
sometimes.
sometimes it's 60 days to get one
So,
finalized, get the contracts done, so we would just have them on, basically have them on retainer, so if we have something that comes up, that we can get them in here quickly if we need to.
So this is for the sake of efficiency.
Yes, ma'am.
And
We
and
just
we
didn't know
would be
what
first up,
processes.
like, with us,
Yes.
we would be first up if emergency does happen to
Yes.
happen.
Yes, sir. They would be at our, I won't use the word beck and call. but
I
they
got
would
you,
be-
that's what I was getting ready to
When
say,
we call,
something
they
similar to
would
that,
show
yeah,
up.
that's,
Yeah, they'll actually answer your phone if you're on their on-call list.
Gotcha,
Right.
gotcha,
Right.
I got you, Mike.
Right. So I would think that this might save money in a sense because it's going to save hours,
Yes, ma'am.
and time is money.
Time is money, and we have a lot of historic and facilities in town that do a good bit of work, and Matt's guys do a fantastic job of maintaining them, keeping them operating. But there are times when we could utilize an on-call to be able to get some of this work done.
Okay. Do we have any further questions for Mr. Surratt? Thank you for giving us more information.
More than welcome, anytime.
I think that was the thing the first time, we just didn't know all the information that went along
And
with
that's
it.
my fault.
It's not anybody's fault,
Yeah, I'll
it was
take the
just,
blame for that one.
just the way that it went, and then, we're
We're learning.
making decisions for everyone else, so
Absolutely.
we just needed a little bit more information from you before we could make a call on that, and thank you for,
You're welcome, anytime.
yes.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, I will entertain a motion to accept this bid.
I'll put that in motion.
Motion by Mr. Anderson, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Webb. Do we have any discussion? No discussion, can we please call the roll?
Ms. Quetch,
Aye.
Mr. Webb,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson.
Aye.
And Mayor Fillion.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike, appreciate it, Mike.
Do we have any new business? Do we have any old business to discuss? Okay, we've already done our swearing in of our new police sergeant. Council member reports. Does anybody have any reports to make?
I do.
We'll start with Don, and we'll just
Yeah.
kind of
Mayor,
work all the way around.
we did P1, but we didn't do the rest of P.
Oh, well, I am sorry. I've skipped over the town manager again. I've done that twice now. I apologize.
Sorry, I just, a couple things, real briefly though. After the community, the HBRB meeting the other night, we went over some things on Valley Street and just wanted to let the citizens know that are watching at home.
The police department has been out there quite a bit. They've, as of this morning, they've made 37 traffic stops, issued 15 citations, and then they've also had the Virginia State Police out there assisting a little bit, and they've issued some citations on their end. And we're hoping between the additional visibility and all that, it'll alter some behavioral patterns when it comes to the driving. Because I do understand that right after the meeting, one of our employees almost got hit crossing the street. So, so it's just an odd situation out there. But we're working on a couple of different things to help mitigate that. So that's about all I had. Anyway, and then also in the fire department, their numbers are pretty steady on those. But what you'll notice is that more than, at least this past month, more than half of the calls that we answered were outside the town. And so those are some, the chief does a real good job of tracking that. And, it's just some interesting information. And then the last part is the information on American Pickers. Tanya sent that out. And the American Picker Show is wanting to do stuff in Virginia. And so there's some information in your handout, and this information will be posted online later this evening. But if anybody has someone that you know is like a hoarder, has got really cool stuff, we need to let American Pickers know, because there's some really awesome antiques in this area. Yeah, that's all the fun and exciting I have for today. So thank you.
Ms. Quetch?
Okay, I'd first like to start off by saying thank you to the staff and all the citizens who serve on these committees. They do a great job, especially with the reports that you present to us with the schedule details of, start to finish, and I appreciate that. And I'll start out with the infrastructure. The Park Street project, the construction to start hopefully by August. Currently, we're done with the design. The design is being reviewed by VDOT. And, some of the things I think that's going there, and I just made a couple notes, is lighting and sidewalk, maybe some other things. But the Valley Street calming, 50 people showed up for a public input session. The final recommendation will be available in 4 to 6 weeks. The sanitary sewer, finished survey, it's moving now into design, and it's approved for $3.2 million loan, 75% loan forgiveness. This is really big. And the sidewalk near the Dollar General will be complete, and it's fully funded by VDOT. And the Finance Committee, I'd like to thank Steve and Finance for their reports and that they bring to Finance Committee, but not only to the Finance Committee, but also to Council. You do a great job. But it's budget season. Staff now is meeting with management to make the request, and I think they're supposed to meet with the Finance Committee on March the 3rd. And also, I'd like to point out, Finance also, Davenport did a presentation at our council retreat. They assure us we're in good financial shape, so it's all good.
And I would like to take over after Donna. First, I'd like to say, number one, it was a very nice turnout for everyone with the Barter Theater and the Abingdon Rotary Frolics that went on this weekend. I attended on Saturday. Looked like it was a full house in there. It seemed like the Rotary raised a lot of money for the foundation. He said as well, the mayor was there on Friday and I was there Saturday, so I think there was a packed house on both nights with that. Just have one update from the HPRB, and we had 2 certificates of appropriateness, one with the natural conservationist, and that was going to be for a rear door replacement, and that was going to be located at 146 East Main. The other certificate was with the Abingdon Farmers Market, and that was for signage, and that is located at 100 Ramsburg Drive. The other is going to be, we had in that meeting, that was one of the biggest meetings that I've attended. I'm on town council, but that day it also was brought to our attention we hosted the Valley Street traffic calming meeting, which we had 48 public attendees. Lots of great conversation following the presentation by the police chief, Holbrook, and the engineering consulting, RK&K. The final report will be out in about 4 to 6 weeks on that. And the HBRB will be bringing an ordinance amendment to the town council to allow terms, consecutive terms to be increased, meaning that if anyone is wanting to run for more than what we have already on the docket, that it'll be passed. If you wanted to run for more than 2 or 3 years, you could run for that. So that's about all I have. Mayor?
Frolics was wonderful. Kim was also, I saw Kim there Friday night, and the town manager participated. So I saw him get an egg smashed on his head on stage, which was entertaining. I don't have anything else to add except for a thank you to the police department for helping with the Valley Street situation, and a thank you to the HPRB and to all the engineering work that has gone into that situation. I know it's a sensitive subject for people who travel the road, but it's also a sensitive subject for those of us who live on Valley Street. So we appreciate your concern for our safety. And it was a very well-attended meeting, which made me happy because I really like to see people taking part in these processes. I don't have anything else except for Mondays with the mayor. We had our second one that was on Facebook this week, so it's on the Town of Abington's Facebook page. We are going to have to film some more very shortly. So if somebody has a business or an event or something that they want to be featured, we're trying to use it to draw attention to things that are going on in the town and to businesses that have special things going on. So reach out to Tanya Triplett or to me, and we'll make sure and include you in that.
I will be brief. Won't reiterate most of the points they've already made, but we had a great council work session, retreat, if you will. It's always fun to get the council together for an extended period of time, and that was very, very beneficial. On my end, I'm eagerly awaiting my first tree commission meeting, and I have spoken with Kevin, who's the most enthusiastic arborist, multiple times about that upcoming meeting. So we're eagerly awaiting that. Other than that, on the rec side of things, we do have, and I don't know how much I can say about this, but there is an event the town will be sponsoring, and Little League is bringing lots of people to town in July. And it should be a very warm reception of people from all over the state. Some say upwards of 500 guests in hotels, which is exactly what we're looking for, and a great utilization of the sports complex. So we're very excited about that. Just keep tuned for more details about that tournament coming to town.
Okay. I think that we have lots to discuss about appointments to boards and committees, and so it is the council's pleasure that we go into closed session. And Mr. Webb is going to read. Do we have it for you?
I'd make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended, Section 2.2-3711A1, for the purpose of considering applications for appointment, reappointment to the positions on Sustain Abington, Tourism Advisory Committee, and Economic Development Authority.
I'll second that.
So the motion to go into closed session was made by Mr. Webb. It was seconded by Ms. Quetch. Is there any discussion? Kim, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
Mr. Webb?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
And Mayor Pillion?
Aye. Okay, upon our return from closed session, Mr. Webb is going to,
First, I'd like to make a motion to reconvene in open session.
I'll second that.
and then do you have to read us back in?
No, she's
Okay,
got-
so,
She's got to call roll.
Kim, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
Mr. Webb?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
And Mayor Pillion?
Aye.
Okay, now you'd like me to certify. that?
Yes, will you please
All
certify
right.
our closed session?
Absolutely. I move that the town council certify that in closed session just concluded, nothing was discussed except the matter or matters specifically identified in the motion to convene in closed session and lawfully permitted to be discussed under the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act cited in the motion.
Mrs. Quetch, do you so certify?
I so certify.
Mr. Webb?
I so certify.
Mr. Anderson?
I so certify.
And Mayor Pillion?
I so certify. So we have several appointments to make to boards and committees. And the first is Sustain Abingdon, but before we entertain the motion to appoint the members of the Sustain Abingdon Committee, we still have spaces on this commission. So if there are people out there who would like to apply, there are spaces available. Do we have a motion for appointments to the Sustain Abingdon Commission?
I would like to reappoint Kathleen Baker and appoint Lauren Nagel to Substantial Abingdon.
So we have a motion by Mr. Anderson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Webb. Do we have any discussion? Since there is no discussion, Kim, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
Mr. Webb?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
And Mayor Pillion?
Aye. The next committee that we need to fill a vacancy on is the Tourism Advisory Committee. We need an appointment to fill a vacancy for a hotel motel entity and an appointment to fill the vacancy for the Arts and Culture entity from William King Museum.
Yes, I'd like to appoint Danny Owen for the hotel and Elisa Justice for the arts.
So we have a motion by Ms. Quetch. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Is second by Mr. Anderson. Is there any discussion? If there is no discussion, Kim, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
Mr. Webb?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
And Mayor Pillion?
Aye. And then finally, we have an appointment to fill the unexpired vacancy on the Economic Development Authority. Do we have a motion to fill that spot?
I'd make a motion to appoint Ms. Doris Schuman to the Economic Development Authority.
So the motion was by Mr. Webb. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Anderson. Is there any discussion? If there is no discussion, Kim, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
Mr. Webb?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
And Mayor Pillion?
Aye. And so I think we are finished with our agenda for this evening. So I will adjourn our meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.